To choose a strip curtain, first you have to decide on the style of strip curtain you're going for. The most common style is a door opening, so this could be a dock door, it could be a door between an office. Basically, you have traffic going in and out of an opening, and these are usually anywhere from like 3 to 7 feet tall to 10 by 10, but they can be just about any size. Your next common style is going to be an open area, and this type of strip curtain is hanging or it could be attached to structure. This particular one you can see is hanging by threaded rods from above, and these are relatively simple. We just need the width, the height, and then whatever style you are going to need for your application. Both of these are actually going to be using the same strips. It's really just the hardware which is the variable between the two, and we'll talk about that in the next step. The next step in choosing your strip curtain is going to be choosing the hardware. Now, starting with the most popular hardware, we have a header mount, and a header mount is going to be actually inside of the jamb. So it's going to go from inside of the jamb to inside of the jamb, and then it's going to hang down from in the middle, essentially. And with a header mount, you're going to want to give us the exact dimensions of width and height, and that's going to be the size of your strip curtain. The next style is wall mount. With a wall mount strip curtain, you are going to be attaching to the face of the structure. So right above the opening is where your hardware is going to be mounted. And with this type of a hardware, we want to take your opening size and add 6 inches to the width, and we want to add 3 inches to the height, because you actually want this strip curtain to be over the opening. If it was the exact same size, there would not be a very good seal from one zone to the other. And this strip curtain is actually ideal for door openings because it gets the strips kind of completely out of the way of traffic going in and out, especially if you have a forklift that's getting kind of close to the top of the door jamb. And the next type of hardware that we have is the universal mount. And a universal mount actually is both styles, a header and a wall mount. And you would get this type of hardware if you're undecided of which one you actually need. So you can see here we're mounting inside of the jamb, and here we're mounting to the face of the wall, which I just described. And in addition to that, it also is a threaded rod type hardware. So when we talked about strip curtains that are just hanging from above, maybe you're making a square, you could actually drop that down from the purlins and the rafters, and you would support that every so often with a 3/8 inch threaded rod. So this hardware, pretty common when you don't know what you want to do, and it gives you the flexibility once you get the strip curtain to either put it in the jamb or put it on the face of the wall. And when you go into our specialty hardware, we have freestanding. So these, you have a plate, and then you have vertical uprights like so, and they go across, and your strip curtain's hanging down from the hardware from above. This type of setup is ideal for freestanding, middle of the floor type applications where you don't really want to support it from above, and there's really no structure to use a header mount, a wall mount, or universal mount. And we see this a lot with our industrial customers. The next style is a sliding mount. The way a sliding mount works is you have the track like so, and then you have roller hooks inside of here, and they come down, and your strip curtains are attached to this. So you can see here the rollers, and this will roll side to side. One thing to keep in mind, if you wanted to put a roller strip curtain on a door opening like so, if this was, let's say, 10 feet, you would actually need 20 feet of hardware because you have to roll this out of the way. This is going to roll like a barn door rolls, so it does not fold up. It's going to move completely out of the way. Now you can split the difference. You can go 5 feet this way, 5 feet this way. So the split door rolls part that way and part this way. That's a biparting rolling strip door. But you need the same amount of track. Another style which is common is a tube mount. Tube mount we see in a lot of coolers and freezers. We do not supply the tube, so that tube is not supplied by us. All you're going to receive are the clamps, and that's made for a 2-inch tube. So you'd supply the tube, we'd supply the clamps that go on that tube, and the strips just mount to this just like they do any other hardware. Now, if you're only getting strips, so for instance, if you already have your hardware, what we would need to know from you is the distance from the top to the bottom of the strip. So we measure strips from the top all the way to the bottom, wherever that may be. So if you tell us you want a 10-foot strip, you're going to get a 10-foot strip from the top to the bottom. So typically what we tell customers to do is with your mounting hardware, it's going to have studs like so, and that's what the strips mount on. Just give us this distance to the floor plus 2 inches, and that'll be your ideal strip height. Now with your strips, they are made to be field trimmed for a perfect fit. So when you get them, they ideally should be a little long, and then you come in and trim them for a perfect size. The next step in choosing your strip curtain is choosing a strip width. Now we choose this primarily based on how tall the strip curtain is going to be. So here we have a 4-inch strip, which is going to be for 7-foot or shorter openings. We have a 6-foot for 8-foot or shorter, and so on and so forth. So the taller your strip, the wider the strip we use. You don't want a real wide, thick strip if you have a small opening where the people are going through like this, because it's going to be hard to walk through. It's going to be pretty obtrusive. And we choose this for you when you fill out our form. So we're going to take a look at your traffic, what's coming and going, how often it's coming and going, and if the strip is inside or outside. Now, the surface, you have two choices. You have a flat, and then you have a ribbed strip. Now, ribbed strips look something like this. And a common question we get, well, why would you want that rib there? So this rib is there to keep traffic from scratching the lower part of the strip. So it's also called an anti-scratch strip. What it does is when you're going through with motorized traffic, it's going to engage with these high ridges, and it's going to help keep these low ridges clear so they stay clear longer. And it's just a beefy strip that's really good for motorized traffic. Now you can only get ribbed strips in 12 and 16 because that's usually the width that we use for motorized traffic. Your 8, your 6, and your 4 are not ribbed strips because these are generally used more or less for personnel traffic only. And finally, you're going to choose a strip overlap. The overlap is how much each strip overlaps the adjacent strip. So here we have just a couple examples. So here's an 8-inch wide strip, right? So there's our width, 8 inches, and you can see it's overlapping the adjacent strip by 50%. Here we have an 8-inch wide strip and it has 100% overlap. So you can see there's no gap here, where here obviously there is a gap. And the same goes on for the 12, the 4, the 6, and the 16-inch wide strips. A common question customers will ask us, well, what's the ideal strip I should be using? And again, there's some overlap between applications where it's not always a 12-inch, it's not always an 8-inch. So some general guidelines that we go by, if it's personnel, in other words, foot traffic, like a 6-inch and 8-inch with a 50 to 100% overlap works great. If you have pallet trucks, light motorized traffic, an 8-inch wide strip with a 50% overlap, or a 12-inch with a 33% overlap. And if you have forklifts coming and going, an 8-inch wide with a 50 or 100% overlap, or a 12 with a 67 to 100% overlap. And those are going to be obviously the beefier strips. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a good idea to get the rib strips for this type of traffic so that you keep the clarity of the strips. Now, again, when you fill out our online forms from our website, we do all this for you and we figure out exactly what's ideal based on your application. And it's also important to remember the more strips you have, the more expensive your strip curtain is going to be. If you're using a 100% overlap, your strip curtain is going to be probably a little bit about double the price of a 50% overlap. So you're just using a lot more material to achieve that. So also less overlap means it's easier to move through. So we choose that for you, and we'll work through your application to choose the correct overlap. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. On Acon's website, you can go through and fill out all of our forms. They're very basic, probably around six questions, and then we send you a detailed quote which goes over the overlap, the strip width, and the type of strips.